Good morning and welcome to Health Talk here on AM 1270 and 96.5 FM KXBX. My name is Paul Thomas, and with me in the studio today is Bill Kearney of Northlake Medical Pharmacies. And Bill, we're doing a third pre-recorded show here because I've got jury duty this morning, and with the morning that our listeners are listening to it, and you're just...
I'm just coming back from away,
yeah. Wow.
So anyway, we'll...
yeah.
But who knows what's happened at the time we're recording this. The big hurricane was in Florida. And,
Yep.
I've talked about not having flu shots available. By the time our listeners hear this, we probably will have flu shots available. But it's a little awkward to be doing something 3 weeks ahead of time. But we're going to talk a little bit about food and some of the things that could affect your health. And a little bit later, we'll get into some ideas about drugs that are going to be on the market and aren't on the market yet that target aging to help keep you healthy. I'm not sure after this weekend that I just went through whether I want to stick around much longer or not. I just got one of these coughs that just completely immobilized me on Saturday, and I'm feeling okay now. My voice is a little bit... maybe it's even better that I've been coughing for 3 days, but
Give you that deeper,
right? Yeah,
that
kind of
gravelly voice.
Smoke a cigarette
Sure.
before. I remember when I first started doing this show, and I was talking to Bill Moan and some of them, and they said, "Well, the best voices are those people who've been smoking." So I started smoking, just before I'd go on the air. Yeah, it didn't seem to sound any better. I remember Bill would come in and say, "Oh, there's that golden voice again," and I'm thinking, "Yeah, it was that cigarette," But speaking of that, you've done a great job on staying off the cigarettes. So.
Well, the Chantix works.
Yeah.
And I didn't get really any of the ill side effects. I didn't want to commit suicide, which is the big one that they say.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of a period when I first took it, like the weekend I started it, where I became really withdrawn and kind of quiet, my wife said. Like I just kind of was in my own thoughts or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really notice it, but she said she thought she noticed it. But, yeah, I mean, it only, and I didn't even go through the full cycle. They give you a 30-day cycle.
Yeah.
I think I went into like maybe the third week, and then I stopped taking it and haven't had to take it since. And I know that the way it's set up is you're supposed to take it every, for longer than the 30 days, but I didn't need to, because once I was done, I was done. And
how many times have you tried to quit?
Oh, good Lord!
Gosh,
over the
I
years,
mean, a lot that I've been through with you.
Oh yeah, a lot. Yeah, an awful lot. And I had quit at one point. I had quit for like a year.
Yeah.
And then had to go to Texas
I remember
flew
that,
to Texas to drive my sister-in-law back, and at that time my health wasn't really good, and as you know, I became drowsy a lot and wasn't sleeping at night. Before I went on to the CPAP for my sleep apnea, I wasn't getting any rest, and I was tired. And so my wife said, "Well, you're going to be driving, and I'd get tired driving. I'd nod off when I was driving. It scared the hell out of my wife.
Yeah.
And we couldn't go anywhere farther than an hour or something, or else I'd start getting really, really tired. And I started smoking on that drive back because I kind of wanted something to keep me alert. But I never thought I needed to take a medication to do it, but I wasn't able to do it on my own. And then taking the medication did it, and I'm like, wow, why didn't I do that earlier? But I guess Chantix hasn't been around for very long either.
No, but enough times.
Yeah.
But I remember that's how I got on sunflower seeds. You were using sunflower seeds to stay awake.
Stay awake. Yep.
So I'm still chewing sunflower seeds. When I travel yesterday,
Yeah.
I had been up for 3 nights in a row coughing, and I had a board meeting in Santa Rosa, and so and I hadn't slept for a long time. And I ate sunflower seeds to keep myself awake.
It does. My dad used to, when we'd go on long trips, like we drove to Colorado or something like that when we were kids, he would eat apples.
Yeah.
He would just sit there and eat apples while he drove.
Well, I eat the whole apple. I don't leave anything out.
The core and everything.
The core, the seeds, everything. So I'd probably be choking about halfway through.
Just like you eat the whole sunflower seed, too,
oh,
right?
yeah.
Wow.
So, Well, we were talking about food, so we'll continue talking about food. One of the things that there was an article on this week was cinnamon and how good it is medically. And it's one of the world's most popular spices that's sprinkled on lattes and boiled with ciders and enjoyed in numerous dishes. Without it, Thanksgiving and Christmas meals might as well become tasteless and a lot less fragrant. The smell is very good. Some of the most promising research is on blood sugar in people with type 2 diabetes. This isn't new information. Experts caution that it's too early in the scientific process to support its use as a supplement, but this is harvested from the inner bark of a tropical evergreen plant. It's been used in Ayurvedic medicine to treat respiratory and digestive problems for centuries. Egyptians used it as a perfume during the embalming process. Romans used it in funerals to mask the stench of burning flesh. The Bible mentions cinnamon several times as the most commonly as a way to perfume bedding, clothes, and anointing oil. The essential oil form is made from the bark and leaves and twigs of the plant. But not all cinnamon is created equal. There are two basic types, Ceylon or Cinnamomum verum, that is grown in Sri Lanka and commonly known as cassia. They're widely produced in China, Indonesia. Cassia has the stronger flavor and odor of the two, and due to its much lower cost, is what we buy in the store to sprinkle on our food. The most expensive is the Ceylon version with a milder, sweeter flavor that might be the best for your health. So I went to the grocery store next door to us, the Bruno Shop Smart, and they must have 10 different kinds of cinnamon there.
Yeah.
Not a one of them say where they came from. They don't say it's Ceylon. They don't say it's Cinnamomum. They don't say what it is. I assume it's probably the latter, because that's the most popular in all the grocery stores. The cassia contain relatively high concentrations of coumarin, which is a plant compound that can damage the liver. A study of the 91 cinnamon samples from various stores in Germany found 63 times more coumarin in cassia cinnamon powder than in Ceylon powder. Cassia sticks, which look like a thick layer of rolled bark, and you can buy these in a jar as a cinnamon stick, contain 18 times more coumarin than the Ceylon sticks, which have thin layers. So which one do you use? A challenge with some of those solutions, because they're not a regulated drug, and that's why you don't see a lot of studies being done to see the effectiveness of one over the other. So we don't exactly know what you're getting when you go to buy it. A lot of things affect the makeup of the product, where it's grown and the soil growing conditions, and how the spice was stored and processed. And that problem also plagues the research on cinnamon, because scientists have used different doses and species and compounds of the spice for their research. Those doses have varied greatly among the studies, from less than 1 gram to levels that would be toxic in humans. The duration of taking the capsules has also varied. That's the problem with the translation of all this work. Even when we find positive results, how do you come up with the correct dosage? And where I had read about it was way back when I was doing long-term care in the 90s. The strongest evidence that lies so far with diabetes and the promise of cinnamon and blood sugar controls, and even small studies in people showing that cinnamon helps with insulin sensitivity and glucose transport while decreasing inflammation. I had nurses that were in the skilled nursing facility that were pre-diabetic, that were taking cinnamon, and it was very effective in lowering their blood sugar. There was a study done at the Ohio College of Pharmacy at Ohio Northern University. Small. It was 18 people with type 2 diabetes that showed the cassia spices of cinnamon was more effective than diet alone in lowering blood glucose levels. In fact, their study found that it was comparable to oral diabetic medications. Now remember, we have several different forms of diabetic medication in this country, and some are called sulfonylureas, which stimulate the pancreas to secrete more insulin. There's things that stop the liver from secreting as much sugar as they can when it's reproduced. There's things that stop the whole process. Another study of 60 people with type 2 diabetes found that small doses of cinnamon reduced blood sugars and improved LDL, or bad cholesterol, triglycerides, and total cholesterol. The fact that the amount that showed benefits for blood sugar and cholesterol in that study was 1 to 6 grams, which is the range of a half a teaspoonful to 3 teaspoonsful, or 1 tablespoon. So it's easy to sprinkle it on cereal or yogurt and use it in recipes. But while the future looks promising, the American Diabetes Association believes there's not enough evidence to find that cinnamon had an impact with levels of what we look at to measure how well the blood sugar is controlled over time. Still, if you want to see whether cinnamon works for you, that people with type 2 diabetes can do a self-test. Do some paired glucose, blood glucose testing. Use a half a teaspoonful in the morning on fruit or oatmeal in the coffee and see what happens to your blood sugar levels before and after you eat. And then again 2 to 3 hours later and see if there's a difference. But keep taking your medicine. You don't want to try something to the exclusion of the medicine you're taking. We still need we still need a bit more work before we roll this out, because it's an over-the-counter medication. And you might even try to work with your doctor when using cinnamon with diabetes medications, as it might drop your blood sugars too low. The antioxidant properties of cinnamon are also being studied for their impact on the formation of plaques. These are the things that form inside your blood vessels and cause your blood pressure to go up, your cholesterol level to go up. Another study found that a component of Ceylon cinnamon to have the same effect. However, research has occurred only in mice, rats, in the laboratory. It appears to work as an anti-inflammatory or an antioxidant, protecting the body on the cellular level from bad things that can happen. So there is cinnamon for sure, and other traditional Indian medicinal plants are also being tested to fight HIV. We don't know where this is going. This is, like I said, this was, let's see, this is 25 years ago that I read about this, and we're still in the same process. Cinnamon as a health aid, based on all the preliminary research, the potential of cinnamon seems enormous, but experts caution that it's still too early in this testing process to suggest that it can be used as a daily supplement. They don't recommend capsules because there's not enough science to tell us to take capsules. You're affecting your body's signaling, and that's significant. We're at an early stage where we don't know how cinnamon will affect most people. It's healthy to cook with spices and use them liberally, but they suggest being cautious about taking any supplements on their own. They know the bottom line is that cinnamon is a perfect pantry staple, a pleasant spice that can add flavors to foods for minimal calories, with several different medicinal properties that give an edge to those looking for a better control of their blood sugar. But we need to do more research. What bothers me about all this is when will the day come when we're not so greedy that somebody can do some research and get paid to do research on substances that are over the counter, have never been on prescription, and hold a great scientific value. And I understand the people who are working to put the product in a healthy state to sell. After all of this research, and the FDA doesn't clarify it as a clinical substance, then how are you able to market it to get more people to take it? Health food stores is one way. There's a lot of products in health food stores that many pharmacies don't carry, and that's the next place I would go to look to see how it's identified on CASIA or Ceylon cinnamon. So put this in the back of your memory and try to utilize it if you can in a very conservative way, and especially try that test with the blood test, taking a teaspoonful of sugar before you take a blood test, and then repeat it in 2 or 3 hours after that, after it is metabolized, and you'll find out if that has any result in lowering your blood glucose. The next item is peanut butter. I take a tablespoon of peanut butter every day. Yep, peanut butter can be a nutritious diet staple, but some varieties are healthier than others. The healthiest peanut butter is made from just peanuts. It's rich in protein, and it's a good source of protein, which can be helpful for vegetarians looking to include more protein in their diet. A 2 tablespoon serving of peanut butter contains up to 8 grams of protein and 2 to 3 grams of powder. I have done this for maybe 5 years. The healthiest peanut butter is made from just peanuts, while added salt, sugars, and oils change it to a nutritional profile. For example, a peanut butter with salt added can have 100 to 150 milligrams of sodium, while the unsaturated or unsalted version is sodium-free. Nuts, including peanuts, which are technically legumes, have been associated with a lower risk of heart disease, cancer, and premature death. It's also been associated with a reduced risk of diabetes too. You know, we talk a lot about diabetes too, and that's the diabetes that occurs after you've been born. You're not born with when you have type 1 diabetes, you're born with the pancreas not able to produce any insulin. When you have type 2 diabetes, as you begin to age, your pancreas decides to produce less and less insulin, and you have to some way combat that. And that's why you take all the medication. Specifically with insulin, you start taking that as soon as you know you have type 1 diabetes, because you're not producing any insulin. With type 2 diabetes, you can be producing insulin, but not enough. And so we have ways to either stimulate the pancreas to increase the insulin production, or block the release of sugar from the liver, or 3 or 4 other ways that new diabetic medicines have been on the market. The reason we talk about it is because obesity has become pandemic, meaning a huge percentage of our population has obesity. That has a lot to do with the age that we're in, the computer age, the fast food age, a lot of the situations where we find it easier to sit down in front of a computer than to go out and kick a football around, or go for a mile walk, or get on the treadmill for 30 minutes, or go swimming for 35 minutes. It's been shown that peanut butter actually contains trans fatty acid, and therefore the composition of peanut butter is different from peanuts. The adverse effects of salt and trans fatty acids could inhibit the protective effects of peanuts. So peanut butter does not contain any detectable levels of trans fats, in spite of what they have said, in any of the 11 brands of peanut butters that the researchers tested, which include both major store brands and natural brands. Even though small amounts of vegetable oils added to commercial peanut butters to prevent it from separating out, it might seem that crunchy or chunky peanut butter might have an edge over the smooth. Nutritionally speaking, no. They're pretty similar. Differences among peanut butter have more to do with their ingredients rather than its texture. So keep in mind that most of the calories in peanut butter come from fat. While it's mostly the heart-healthy, unsaturated and polyunsaturated kind, it does make peanut butter a calorie-dense food. A 2 tablespoon serving has approximately 200 calories, so if you're carefully watching calories, you can cut that portion in half and steer clear of the flavored peanut butters with added sugars. Remember, a candy bar is about 300 calories, so you're taking less in in a tablespoonful of peanut butter or 2 tablespoonsful of peanut butter than you are in taking most any kind of a candy bar. So again, peanut butter is healthy for you. I eat it in the morning on a English muffin. Probably would be better without it, but that's just been part of my routine. I've been able to sustain my body weight for maybe 5 years. I weighed to 245 pounds. I weigh 179 pounds this morning, but I exercise a lot also, and I watch what I eat. Speaking of what you can eat, there are 8 foods that can be stored for years, and as we go through these traumatic changes in our environment, we think more and more about maybe possibly storing food up for the day that we may not be able to go out and get food, and something that we can utilize to keep ourselves healthy if we're unable to grow our own or go to the grocery store. Now, I've seen several advertisements for food that are advertised by hunting magazines and outward living magazines and people that do a lot of outdoors things for foods that last in sealed containers up to 30 years. But these are 8 foods that nearly last forever, thanks to its salt content and fermentation and soy sauce that can last for years in an unopened container. The first one is honey. And you will see many roadside stands right now selling honey. They found a 3,000-year-old honey while evacuating tombs in Egypt in 2015, and it was perfectly edible after 3,000 years. The durability is thanks to the unique features of honey. It's low water, high in sugar, so bacteria cannot grow on it. It also contains small amounts of hydrogen peroxide, which inhibits growth of microbes. This is partly why bees produce it for young in their hives as both food and protection. Processing honey also helps. The sugars in the honey are hygroscopic, which tend to draw in atmospheric water, which isn't ideal, but during the process and packaging, the heat treatment removes the water, and then airtight lids keeps the water out, making it last longer. So although it can go cloudy and crystallize when opened, as the sugars draw into the water, the physical change can be reversed by simply warming the honey. So here's honey that would certainly last through my lifetime. Somebody could probably eat it 20 years after I die, and it would still be healthy for you. As with honey, dried legumes or beans and lentils and other legumes increase the sugar concentration and lower the water contact, which makes it hard for bacteria and molds to grow. Almost any enzyme could naturally break down the product. If the container is airtight, they'll last for years and still be a great source of protein. If you allow water in it, however, they will only last a few months, as that's with most all of these. Soy sauce, which for some reason, we went on vacation here a couple years ago and we bought a gallon of soy sauce.
Wow.
A gallon of soy
gallon
sauce.
of soy sauce. You still have it?
It's still good. It has the potential to last at least 3 years, and it's been 3 years. The combination of, you go to Hawaii or you go to one of these tropical islands and you stop at Costco or something before you go back into the villages, and you buy these quantities even though you're going to be there for a week or 10 days.
Yeah.
We bought this gallon of soy sauce, never opened it. And the combination of the salt and being fermented means that if it's unopened, it should last for a very long shelf life.
Wow.
Now, I don't know how much longer. I can bring it up to you, and you can leave it in your house for 5 years and see how long it will last, depending on the type. Once opened, the temperature it is stored at, if it does go off, it is likely to be due to the mold growing around the lid. So there you have it, soy sauce, legumes, and peanut butter. The next one's vinegar. Some may argue that vinegar is already spoiled because it tastes kind of like it. My mother drank a tablespoonful of vinegar every day, and she lived until she was 94 years old. It's very acidic. Its acidic nature is used because of using actobacteria to ferment it. Means other bacteria struggle to grow in it, so it can last a very long time. While white vinegar will remain almost unchanged indefinitely, other vinegars may change color or produce a sediment. That doesn't affect the safety of the product, though, just the appearance and maybe the flavor. But whether it has any food value or not, I don't have any idea. But you can put it in your cellar and it'll last forever. White rice is another thing that's been eaten after being stored for 30 years in tin. When I excuse me, when I went over to Asia, I lived out in the village with the South Vietnamese and the Korean people, mainly the Korean people, and you bought a 50-pound bag of rice for $12, and it never went bad. After being stored for 30 years in tins with parboiled rice and passing a tasting barrel test, what appears to be key for rice is atmosphere and temperature. Studies have reported that a low temperature and a lack of oxygen appear to be important for its longevity. Brown rice, although often considered to be healthier, has a shorter shelf life, so not as good as saving around. The rice that I bought over there was in big bags, and of course it was the winter time in Korea, so it didn't go bad at all. But through the summers there, it's very tropical. It could not last very long. This is another one that wouldn't last very long, but it is stable over a long period of time. There's some debate whether chocolate goes bad. The addition of milk to chocolate may reduce its shelf life, but dark chocolate appears to last better despite not always looking like it. We sell See's chocolates. We sell candy bars also. We will notice a white layer coming across it as it begins to age. Doesn't seem to taste different, but that could be because it's not stored at a constant temperature and the fat raises to the surface, leaving a bloom that looks a bit like mold. If stored at a constant temperature, chocolate can last for 2 years or more with concentrations of compounds which some link to health benefits, though at the time we're really not sure what those compounds are. The last thing, which is pretty valuable, is sugar and salt. Many of the foods that last for a long time are higher in sugar and salt. In simple terms, they draw water out, so if bacteria try to grow on it, they'll simply shrivel up. That's why we use salt to make ham, sugar to make jam, and both to make gravy. So as foods in their own right, if salt and sugar are stored away from moisture in airtight containers, they will last indefinitely. But additives such as iodine added to salt can reduce its shelf life to about 5 years. Of course, most foods don't last very long. That's because they contain the things that these bacteria love, such as nutrients and water, and not much of the stuff they don't love, such as salt and acid. So look by use-by dates are generally used for food safety reasons, and best before dates are more to do with the quality of the product. The best before date may have little bearing on the shelf life of the products, only how it looks and tastes. We just had I went to a board meeting yesterday, and one of the inspectors came in the pharmacies to inspect over a law that was called USP 800. And most of the United States did not have to go under that regulation until July of 2018, but California had to go under that law in 2017, in January. Part of what they asked for was a beyond use date. No matter what the chemistry laboratory sends you when you order a raw product, the State Board of Pharmacy has said that it's only good for 14 days, the beyond use, we have some of these creams, pain creams, that last up to that are, $180, $250 for a month's supply, and they're telling us we have to put a Beyond Use date on there as 2 weeks. That does not affect the stability of that product. Sometimes I wonder about these agencies, whether they're trying to eliminate the amount of pharmacies there are by consulting them and fining them for things that have nothing to do with the quality of the products. But instead of going after the pharmacies that are selling the opiates and illegally and compromising the safety of their patients by doing things illegally. But that's just the state of our country at the time. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the new class of drugs that targets aging to help keep you healthy.
Hi, my name is Bill Kearney, pharmacist and owner of Northlake Medical Pharmacies. Do you take non-prescription medications to relieve your headache, fever, or arthritis? If so, you're not alone. Americans consume more than 50 billion non-prescription over-the-counter medications each year. When taken as directed, they are safe and effective, but they're still serious medications. At Northlake Medical Pharmacy, our pharmacists want you to know they are always available to talk to you about your medications, including over-the-counter medications. So talk to our pharmacists for your good health. We also want you to know that we care about your health. By working together with our pharmacists, you can get the most out of the medications that help make you feel better when you're sick or help keep you healthy. So remember, talk to our pharmacists for your good health. Northlake Medical Pharmacies, with 2 locations to serve you, on Hill Road next to Sutter Lakeside Hospital and outside the Bruno Shop Smart at 347 Lakeport Boulevard.
This is the Caltrans Road Information Bulletin for Lake and Mendocino County State Highways for the week beginning Friday, September 8th. In Lake County, on Route 20 near Clover Creek, weekdays expect 10-minute delays. On Route 29 near Hofacker Lane, weekdays expect 10-minute delays. And on 175 near Arroyo Vista Road, expect 5-minute delays weekdays. In Mendocino County, on Route 1, expect 5-minute delays at a few locations. On Route 20 near Little Lake Road, beginning the 13th, expect 5-minute delays weekdays. And near James Creek weekdays, a company could cause 5-minute delays. On Highway 101, expect weekday delays in multiple locations throughout Mendocino County. On 128 near Shearing Creek, weekdays expect 10-minute delays. On 162 west of Pukini, weekdays expect 10-minute delays. And starting the 13th near Outlet Creek, expect 5-minute delays. On 175 near the Lake County line, expect 30-minute delays. On 253 near Singley Cattle Pass, expect 15-minute delays weekdays. And that's it. Like us on Facebook for more updates. That's Caltrans District 1.
The Lake County Library presents the NEA Big Read during the month of October. Stop into your local library branch to pick up your copy of the novel selection Station 11. Then plan to attend all the events happening around Lake County. There's book discussions, forgotten skills demonstrations, thrift store fashion shows, and more. For more information, visit the Big Read website at lakecountybigread.com or call the library at 263-8817. The NEA Big Read is a program of the National Endowment for the Arts in partnership with Arts Midwest.
Raising your family, tending to your animals, growing your own produce, preparing for the seasons, living the country life. Hi, I'm Jody Henke, host of Living the Country Life. Catch me every Monday through Friday at 9:35 a.m. and 4:35 p.m. for ideas and inspiration for your place in the country. That's Living the Country Life here on AM 1270 and 96.5 FM KXBX.
We bring the community closer together, supporting business in every way. We're helping make your dreams come true, working hard for you.
The Lake County Chamber of Commerce would like to recognize their Member of the Month Business Design Services. Robert Bocabella, BFA, is principal and founder of Business Design Services and is a certified interior designer in private practice for over 30 years. He provides designing to fit the vision in collaboration with writing service at earthlink.net. To contact him, call 263-7073 or email him at rb@businessdesignservices.com or visit his website at businessdesignservices.com or on Facebook at Business Design Services.
Lake County Chamber of Commerce, we're steady and strong, help us shape the future.
Alrighty, we're back.
Okay, we're going to talk about some drugs that aren't even available right now. Researchers have turned the spotlight on a new class of drugs they said could transform the field of medicine, and the drugs work by targeting aging. I wish they'd have had this about 20 years ago, Paul, and I would feel much younger than I do.
Sure, yeah.
These people are from Mayo Clinic in Rochester, and they're calling for senolytic drugs to make the leap from animal research to human clinical trials. They've done this in animals a lot and been very effective. They have outlined potential clinical trial scenarios in a paper published in the Journal of American Geriatrics last Monday. One of the most exciting fields of medicine at the moment, and as we age, we accumulate what they call senescent cells, which are damaged cells that resist dying off. That's what makes us look so bad, I guess, our baggy eyes and wrinkles. And I was watching a show last night, whatever it is, the Steve Harvey show where they, Family Feud or whatever it was, and they were asking why you didn't want to see your husband naked, and one of the answers was wrinkles.
Wrinkles, yeah.
So those bad cells stay in our body, and they can affect other cells in various organs and tissues, and they're capable, these new senolytic drugs, of killing problem-causing these senescent cells in your body without harming your normal healthy cells. As we talked about last week, that's what we're trying to do in cancer, is trying to keep healthy cells healthy and get rid of only the bad cells. These senescent cells play a role in many age-related chronic diseases such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, which is heart attack and stroke, almost every kind of cancer, dementia, arthritis, osteoporosis, which is softening of the bones, and blindness. Therefore, they're a possible treatment for all these diseases. The same process that causes aging seem to be the root causes of age-related diseases. Why not target the reason, the place that these come from, of all these things? That would have been a pipe dream until a few years ago, when scientists from Scripps Research Institute. I highly respect both the Mayo Clinic and the Scripps Institute. Identified this new class of drugs. They described how these drugs can eliminate or alleviate symptoms of frailty in mice and extend the length of time the mice are healthy as they grow old. Then last year, the researchers demonstrate a study in aging cell that clearly senescent cells in mice can improve their vascular health. So now we weren't only living longer, but the veins and the arteries in our system improved considerably. So 14 drugs have been discovered which are being actively studied, 11 of which this research scientists and their colleagues and their collaborators found. Are they ready for human trials? I'm not sure. Scientists have long known that process influences your aging on the cellular level, and that includes inflammation and cell damage and destruction. It turns out that those processes are all linked to these kind of cells. So an intervention that targets these cells could attenuate other aging processes, as well as, according to the newspaper, that all these cells would be affected. And that is, once such an intervention is tested for efficacy and safety, then they would be used in human beings. They think they have a great future and rejuvenate tissue of organs. It may be one of our potential best treatments for age-related diseases. So it's a huge step, taking these drugs from mouse studies to humans. So they're going to have to wait for clinical trials to see whether this would work in humans. One possible clinical trial strategy is to test that class of drugs in age-related diseases such as neurodegeneration and Parkinson's disease, to see if it can reduce the severity of the disease, as also improve the tissue functions. As we've seen in mice, it does improve the vascular system. There's no reason to believe it wouldn't do the same in human beings. This new paper that they wrote, the potential clinic trial scenarios, including tested where whether these drugs would alleviate multiple chronic diseases in a single patient, or whether such drugs could treat conditions that involve these cells in one location, such as for osteoarthritis. They also suggest whether the drugs would treat diseases for which there are no medicines to slow the progression. And I think of one of those right now as ALS, Charcot-Marie Tooth syndrome. Many of those things there is no cure for, and they continue to progress. Other potential clinical trials include testing whether the drugs would alleviate the frailty in older adults, meaning when they were so fragile, or can treat conditions associated with chemotherapy or radiotherapy. You can tell many times when people have undergone chemotherapy or radiation because radiation produces a lot of aging process in those cells. For instance, in mice, you treat one leg with enough radiation for 3 months, the mouse has trouble walking. If you give a single dose of these drugs, they're able to walk quite well, and that persists for 2 years. Those drugs could mitigate the effects of therapeutic radiation. You know, I don't know if we'll ever find an end to cancer, but if we can find a drug, a senolytic drug, like these, and I don't have names of these drugs, but certain experimental cancer drugs already are undergoing clinical trials and have been shown to have some of those properties. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we could treat somebody once with radiation or chemotherapy and not have to keep repeating it, and it be effective for 3+ years? And who knows what's going to happen in 3 years. We have so many changes in healthcare today, positive changes that are helping people survive longer. It's costing our health system extensively because people are living longer, and we didn't provide for this in our Medicare and Medicaid, and we're having a difficult time paying for the treatments. Cancer drugs can range in cost from $20 a month to several $1,000s a month. There are people that have had to mortgage their houses and do a reverse mortgage to get the money out of their homes to pay for chemotherapy and end up being terminal, and that money's gone. If any of these drugs, which have been approved by the Food and Drug Administration, has been studied in combination with the diseases, some of them have a monthly price tag of about $8,000, according to the Sloan Kettering Cancer Institute. If you were able to reduce the hospitalizations, the savings on medical care and the hospital side might more than offset the cost of the drugs by a long shot. The problem is you've got to get the insurance. If they were going to pay for being in the hospital, they'd better pay for the cost of the drug. Many times when it's less expensive, one example is Zostavax. This is a shot for herpes. Mainly people age 50 and older can get shingles. Medicare does not pay for that. I don't understand that. The cost of taking care of somebody with shingles that could go on for many years, usually doesn't, but could, is far greater than the cost of that shot, which is around $225. But if we were able to reduce the hospitalizations, the saving on medical care would be substantial. What is the future for these drugs? Because I'm sure most of you, including me, never heard of senolytic drugs till I read this article. As for how human clinical trials might commence, they said that doctors could have an idea of how well those drugs work for serious health conditions in about 1.5 years or 2 years. Once the drugs are tested in humans, researchers expect many companies to be lining up to develop or manufacture these drugs. Some have already expressed interest. But I can tell you, just by what the cost of hepatitis C drugs are now and what chemotherapy drugs are, these are going to be expensive. The result, however, is not just to treat the disease, it's to improve your outcome in the disease. One One company, Unity Biotechnology, aims to be the first to demonstrate that removing these bad cells can cure human diseases. In the coming decades, they believe that healthcare will be transformed by this class of medicine, and a whole set of diseases that your parents and grandparents have will be things you only see in movies or read in books. Those diseases will completely disappear. Can you imagine what that would do to the healthcare industry if all of a sudden there was no arthritis to treat, there was no cancer to treat, there was no COPD to treat, there was no vascular diseases, heart attacks, or strokes? While many studies may be on the horizon for these drugs, some may not be successful, and we have to be prepared for that. One thing that people tend to do is they tend to overestimate things in the short run and then underestimate things in the long run. And many fields suffer from that as well. It's going to take a while. I think it's important to recognize that a drug discovery is among the most important of all activities, but it's also one of the most valuable. And, you know, you have to invest in the future. And that becomes more difficult as we age and realize that we're not going to be able to benefit probably from investing in these kind of things. And we're not going to see the result of what they can do. That becomes a difficult time when you're in the field of raising money and trying to get more money for a research project, or get more money for a hospital, or get more money for a clinic. And most people that have the finances are older people that have been successful in business. And they're asking you to invest in the future of your peer's life, not your life, because you probably won't be around to enjoy the benefits. But hold this in the back of your mind, senolytic drugs, and watch it for the next 20 years and see how we progress on doing this. West Nile virus. We don't speak much about it now because it's fairly common. It's already been in California. I think it's already been in Lake County. I'm not positive. There's a wide variety of insects available, insect repellents available that we recommend using, but you need to do preventative things first to prevent that. Avoid spending time outside at dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are active. They are especially active 2 hours after sunset. And we know that when outdoors that you should be wearing long pants, long sleeve shirts, and protective clothing. A little difficult to do when it's 104 and 110, but something that is going to protect us. Apply insect repellent containing DEET according to the instructions. Make sure that the doors and windows have tight-fitting screens. Repair or replace screens that have tears or holes. You know, I find that if you have children, I find that difficult to do because every time I have grandkids over, somebody runs through the screen, and then I have to repair it again. And then sometimes I think, well, I'll just wait until winter, and then I'll replace it. And then I thought, well, there's no reason to replace it. There aren't any bugs flying around. So
sounds like my back door.
Yeah. Well, that's where my back door to my patio.
Same thing.
I just repaired it, and next thing I know, I have one of my grandsons come down.
Yeah.
And he runs right through it.
I know.
And I'm thinking,
well, ours is the dog. Our dog is just sits there and butts its head up against it, and eventually screen doors are the worst things ever made. I don't know why they can't invent a screen door that keeps the screen in it.
Yeah.
And not ripping, you know what I mean? Not rip.
I've even got the repair units to repair them, and I've repaired them, and they still come through.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I got a metal one time, metal screen mesh, not the nylon, and put that in, and it was worse than the nylon one because it was all pokey and screen doors.
I've thought about
doors.
using barbed wire.
Yeah.
Maybe that would help. And the last one is a big one. It's eliminate all sources of standing water that can support mosquito breeding. I just had a person out to my home this morning to repair all my sprinkler systems because half of them are working. I've only had it for 30 years, and I'm not a handyman, but I did have I have some bird baths around that don't have water flowing in them, just a stale water bird bath, because one of the sprinklers squirts right into it. You'd think I would, you know, if my children were home and this was happening, I'd say, what does it take for you to walk by that and just put the sprinkler system down so it doesn't run into that? I've been trying to tell myself that, and as I'm going through the sprinkler system with this gentleman today, I'm saying, you know, I'm a pharmacist. I'm not a handyman, but there are certain things that I should be doing at least to stop some of this. If you are going to be outside and doing all these things, you want to use products that have DEET, off, repel. Adults use 10 to 50%. Those last for 2 to 6 hours. Can use up to 30% for children. Picaridin, which is Cutter Advanced, may be less irritating and better smelling, feels more comfortable on the skin. Not quite as strong as the other. Lemon eucalyptus oil, which is Repel. Lemon eucalyptus oil, it's a 30% product that works as well as DEET. Permethrin, which is Fight Bite, Everglades, but apply only to clothing. Select a product based on how long you want to spend outdoors. All these act as a chemical barrier, blocking the mosquito's ability to smell. If you use a sunscreen, use the sunscreen first and then put on the skin repellent. So if you put the skin repellent on first and then put or the repellent for the DEET and then put the sunscreen on, it's not going to absorb through the sunscreen, and you're not going to kill any mosquitoes. So haven't been too bad this year at my place. I don't know about your place, Paul, whether or not you've had...
No, not too bad this year.
I've had yellow jackets, but I've not had, and I haven't had as many of those.
Yeah.
But I have had some mosquitoes, but not very many compared to usually. And I'm on the water.
Yeah.
So you still have your swimming pool out back?
We do. Yeah. We actually I went in it yesterday with Matthew because it was pretty warm yesterday.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's up. It's probably coming down. No, I don't know. Maybe in a few weeks here.
Well, September and October sometimes
can be pretty warm.
Pretty
yeah.
warm months. So we got a few minutes left. We're talking about. We've been talking about in the last few weeks of taking too many meds. I told you last week or the week before about Sutter Lakeside having a brown bag project going on the 14th of October. And our pharmacists are going to be helping there. And we offer that to you every day at our pharmacy at North Lake at Bruno's. And you bring in all the medications that you have, including over-the-counter medicines. No matter where you go to get your prescriptions filled, bring them in. Actually, October 21st is the National Day to talk to a health pro and find out if you have a brown bag problem or not. And we go through all your medications, look and see what they were prescribed for, and ask you what they were prescribed for. You'll see a lot of pharmacy chains, including Costco and Albertsons and Target and Walmart, as well as a lot of independent pharmacies doing brown bags that week, whether it's exactly that day or not. And we can also compare the cost of drugs on maybe there's a generic for what you're taking. Maybe you're taking the generic and the brand name of the same drug and you don't know it because they have different names on the bottle. We know that we're taking too many medications. As I look at physicians that are staying with it, I see people taking more and more people off medications, giving more and more 90-day supplies for maintenance medications. giving less and less opiates to the point that we may see opiates not even being manufactured anymore, maybe just in a hospital setting and not at an outpatient setting. We'll have to see, but there's no way that you can know what you're taking, and if you're taking too much of something or not taking something that you've had for a long time and wonder why you still have it. Maybe you're still supposed to be taking it. Our goal is for you not to be taking anything that you don't have to take. Now, that may seem strange to you as a pharmacist that sells medications, but it doesn't do us any good if you're not with us down the road because you overdosed on many medicines, and we've given you those figures many times on how many people are taking too many medications. There are some physicians who believe on prescribing up to 12 to 15 medications. And I have insurance companies that we do medical therapy management. There will be 15 drugs on there. Instead of asking us to not refill them, they're asking us to ask you why you haven't filled them. And if you're not filling, they call you non-compliant, and they want you to take that medication. That's difficult for me to understand because they pay me to, not a lot, but they pay me to monitor or not whether you come in the pharmacy or not. So you may receive a phone call from one of my girls saying this medicine was to be picked up on the 5th of September. It's now the 9th. I think it's the 9th. Maybe it's the 10th. I don't know.
Today?
Today.
Today's the 11th.
Oh, yeah. So I should have got those dementia pills on Saturday.
Today's the...
I could have remembered. Oh, yeah.
What do they call it? Patriot Day now?
Yeah,
That's what they're calling it? Yeah.
Yes, I should remember that.
That's the day we're recording
That's
this,
the
not the day that
yeah.
people are listening
Yeah,
to this.
if you guys think that you've overslept for 2 weeks, that might be dangerous. But it's very important that if it's something that you haven't talked about with your physician, you don't stop taking it until you've consulted with him or her about whether or not you still need to take it. Along that line, as you become getting to age, there are health forms that you must have. Only 46% of adults 65 and older have a living will with a designated health care proxy or other document that spells out the end of the life wishes if they're unable to speak for themselves. Now, we never know when that's going to happen. I don't know when I walk out of the studio if I'm going to get hit by a car or if some guy's going to shoot me because he thinks I have drugs on me, or I know he won't shoot me because he thinks I have money on me. So, but you never know. I mean, you could have a stroke or a heart attack or something very unusual could happen to you. And you need to have a proxy, some designated health provider that can pick up your meds for you. I'd like to remind you that we're North Lake Medical Pharmacy with 2 locations for you at 5136 Hill Road East across from Sutter Lakeside Hospital. Call us there at 263-6192. And outside the Bruno's Shop Smart at 347 Lakeport Boulevard. Give us a call there at 263-1328. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Bill, and we'll see everybody back here again next Wednesday for a real show. We'll actually be live.
You bet.
Yep, right here on AM 1270 and 96.5 FM KXBX, Lakeport.